Say it with me, for we walk by faith, not by sight. Hey guys, John with Cheap Old Cars and Corners. So in this week's video, we're going to cover a few things. Mainly it's kind of spring stuff, going over some of that stuff again. I asked some questions online, got some different people's opinions about things, and I'm going to share some of those with you. First off, before we get into that though, I want to go through kind of my office setup here a little bit, because I just think this is a cool little thing I've got going on over here. So the dresser we got on Marketplace for dirt cheap. I painted it blue. There's a scratch in that drawer right there. I gotta find in my notes what color blue this was so I can touch that up. And then I sanded and restained the top. I made this little riser here for my PS3, which is under there. It's kind of black and hard to see, but PS3 needs some air, and it's a leg in the front and on each side, and then two legs in the back, and the sides are open, so the PS3 can actually get some air in. It's not great, better than nothing. So it's not like fully blocked off on the sides, right? PS5 on top. I had my PS4, my Days of Play blue one. I used to play video games a bunch. I don't play near as much as I used to. So I used to be more into it. DH190, so that's a 2-channel receiver, no subwoofer outputs or anything like that. Got my Nintendo 64 that I got in 1996 when I was 11. Then there's my Days of Play PlayStation motherboard. So the disk drive stopped working, and I'm fairly handy, right, with electronics and stuff, and I can read a wiring diagram and I can figure things out typically. I'm not the best, right, but I can work my way through some stuff. And so I took it apart, and I'm testing the two little switches in the disk drive that need to be activated by a little arm that moves. And first off, I found something in the disk drive that wasn't moving correctly, and I got it fixed. And then I tested the resistance on those. They were both working. And so if they were both working and then it's not the ribbon cable, then it's a little fuse on the motherboard. Okay. I've never done like little micro soldering stuff, but you give stuff a shot, and if it doesn't work, I'll just buy another PlayStation for $150-200, whatever. I was hoping I could fix it, or I was hoping I could, find the problem and then get a repair shop to fix it or something. I don't know. Maybe I should have just let it be. When I took the PlayStation apart, there were lots of parts that fell out of it, right? So typically there's this one little heatsink piece that can come out, and then the bracket for the vertical stand can fall out. But there were like 5 or 6 different things that fell out of this PlayStation 4. And that was really upsetting, because that was, I used to be big into video games, and I like collecting things. And so having one of the special edition ones I thought was a cool thing, right? I've still got the motherboard, which I'll probably take that down at some point. I just thought it'd be fun to put it there. But I still got the top and bottom cover. I don't have them with me right now. I put them up in a closet over there. But I still got the top and bottom cover for it, which is the blue and everything. I've got the special controller that came with it. So, I don't know, that's kind of cool. Like, boomers have all their stuff, and I see posts online all the time about, like, the collections of things that boomers have. And I'm going to show you guys. I'm a big nerd. We all know this. I've got some Power Ranger stuff. Okay? I kind of like Power Rangers. That came out when I was 8, and I was already a fan of Godzilla movies. And so, giant robots fighting giant monsters was my cup of tea. Okay? But, like, you can't, people are making fun of boomers, and like a bunch of people our age, older millennials, were collecting those Funko Pop things and toys of stuff we had. It's like, it's the same thing. So, I don't know, I like collecting things. Anyway, we're going to go back over here. So, in that Nintendo 64, I have an EverDrive, which has a little SD card in the side of it that has every Nintendo 64 game on it, and every NES game. The SNES that can't emulate it right or something, I don't know. But anyway, it's got, I guess almost every NES game, but every Nintendo 64 game, and then all the different variations from different countries and stuff. So all of that, I got every Nintendo 64 game right there, and I can play them. A bunch of Tetris games, not Tetris. There's a bunch of Game Boy games on it too, which is pretty cool. There's even some Sega games on there. Interesting, but yeah. I think I got a couple Sonic games on it as well. But yeah, so I can play that, and it's one thing that's nifty about it. It's called an EverDrive 64K, but it's got a built-in Game Shark. We're gonna get nerdy. That TV back there, it's all bright and blown out, but when I turn around and look at it, the colors are clear and crisp. I'll talk about that TV in a second. It's really cool. I have 2 Game Sharks. This one just has the little vent on the back. This one actually had the thing where you could program it with the computer. I never did that, but yeah, Game Sharks. I still have these things. I always took really good care of my stuff, so I still have everything. All right, let's move on. So anyway, when the PlayStation 4 broke, the 5 was on sale, and I think it's still on sale. It's a Fortnite bundle. I don't play Fortnite. Any game that's free, I don't really do, because they're just going to try to get you to buy stuff. I don't like that at all. So I did go ahead and get a PS5. It was on sale. I kind of feel bad about spending that much money on something like that, but because I don't play that much anymore. But it was on sale. It has the disc drive, which is cool, so I can, movies and different things. And most importantly, I probably will play GTA 6 when it comes out, so that will be needed. There might be a few games I'm going to play here and there. I don't play like I used to. Now the TV is fun. The TV is a 2009 Sony Bravia. Okay, it's pretty old at this point. It's 1080p, not 4K or anything like that. I mean, it was 2009, right? And I got it in a bundle from Best Buy when I got my first PS3. Okay. Now, it was a Christmas deal bundle, and it was already a pretty good discount. I want to say it was $300 off of what the TV and PS3 would have been from the get-go, and it came with a game too. I don't remember what game now, but it did come with a game. And that TV is awesome. That was Sony's absolute top of the line. It's a 46, but there were a few different sizes, but it was the top of the line TV that Sony made in 2009, and it has so many connections on it. It's amazing. Now, obviously, like the HDMI stuff is older. It's not the ARC HDMI stuff. Whatever. It's fine. It'll be fine. But yeah, that TV has so many connections on the back of it. I have had. What was it? I don't want to say it wrong. I've had so let's count: an NES, SNES, Nintendo 64, GameCube, Wii U, PS2, PS3, PS4. I thought there were more. Oh yeah, there was more. And an Xbox One. An Xbox One Series S hooked to it. So I've had 10 consoles hooked to that TV at one time. 11 because there was a Sega Genesis in there too. Yep. I don't have all that stuff now, and I'm cheating a little bit because I don't have a GameCube, but the original Wii can play GameCube games, and you open up the side of it, and it has the ports for the GameCube controllers and everything, so I'm counting that as a GameCube. Yeah, I had 11 consoles. I hope I didn't say one in there twice. Guys, it might have been said. I think it was 11 consoles I had hooked to that TV at one point, and I just switched between whatever on the console or, and one of them, like one of the PlayStations, went through the Xbox because the Xbox has an in and out HDMI. But still, I had 11 consoles hooked to that TV at one point, just to see what I could do, which is, I don't know, it's kind of cool, right? And so how it's hooked up now. There's actually one wire over here behind this Mustang on the speaker that you can't see, but I'm going to hide it pretty soon. And it goes to the Nintendo 64. I'll tell you about that in just a second. I'll go ahead and tell you about it now. I hid everything in the wall. There's a hole behind the TV, and there's a hole right about there behind. I should have put it lower behind this thing here, but originally I had a shelf back here with the radio on it and 2 speakers. And the hole was right behind the shelf, and so all the wires for the power came out down here much lower, and it was all hidden behind the plug-in down there, and where the wires came out was hidden behind a guitar amp, which is over here on the wall now. started playing guitar. Haven't really got into it as much as I want. I really want to get back into that, so I'll probably start that soon. Anyway, so there's a hole there, and then I kind of have stuff stacked and spaced to kind of help cover that hole that's right behind the wall there. But yeah, so there's power stuff that goes from the TV all the way down, and then the power from all these guys goes into the wall, then comes out back down lower. So it's all hidden, right? And then I've got an HDMI. I've got two HDMIs from here, from my PlayStation 3 and 5 into the TV, and then I've got RCA left and right out from the TV, from like back up over here on the TV all the way over and into the wall and down. It's that goes into the receiver, because that receiver is 2-channel. It's not surround sound. It doesn't have, like I said earlier, it doesn't have any subwoofer outputs or anything. So if I wanted to run a subwoofer on that, I would have to get a subwoofer that takes line level in and then out. Basically, it passes through, and it then would use its own internal crossover to cut out the higher sounds. Don't have a subwoofer, not really needed. These Klipsch speakers are awesome. They are Klipsch RP160Ms. They're like 2 generations old now, I think. Or let's say there's 2 generations after them, so they're like the 3rd generation ago. Whatever, however you want to say that. They're good speakers, though. They have titanium tweeters, 6-inch woofer. I can shake stuff. There's like pictures on the back side of this wall. If I turn the bass up on these, those pictures would be rattling. They have a surprising amount of bass, but they're a little big. And so, hang on just a sec. I've got these Sony speakers, the SSCS5. This one's taken apart right now to repaint. They were black. I painted them blue. I'm going to paint them a different color blue. Put that back down here. Those speakers are going to go here. The problem I have with the Sony speakers, they're really even, and they sound good. They actually do. So I'm kind of trying to find another set of these, but with the 5-inch woofers, because the overall will be smaller. Or I might just get a set of the previous generation R51M speaker, which I'm not huge. I like Klipsch. I like the horn thing, but with the aluminum tweeter diaphragms, it's a little harsh on the ears. It's too bright. And so, like I said, these have titanium, which is great. My my Klipsch KG 3.2s in my dining room, I changed the tweeter diaphragms in those to titanium, and it sounds amazing. Those are the most detailed, clear speakers I have, and they're just a 2-way. I'd like to get into some 3-way stuff, some Klipsch 3-way with, you know, a horn mid and a horn tweeter, but that's expensive. Guys, I don't know if any of you are watching this at this point. I want to remind that the channel was originally called Cheap Old Cars and Audio, and part of the original thing was I was going to talk about some audio stuff here and there. So this is not going to be all car. I'm going to get back to car stuff here in a second. But yeah, I like this stuff. This is fun. I enjoy setting these things up. My living room setup's pretty cool. I don't remember the size of the TV. It's 60 to 64. I don't know, somewhere in there. It's a decent sized TV, but not like huge. You know, wall mounted. All the wires are hidden in the wall. And then I've got an entertainment center down the bottom with a Klipsch RP440C center channel. So same generation as these with the cherry wood, the vinyl wood on the side. And then I have 2 1974 Pioneer CS-63DX speakers. Little big old heavy things, like 60, 70 pounds a piece or something. They're chunks. And they have a sound that I like. It's a warm sound. It's very much a Pioneer sound of that era. But my dad had, I don't remember exactly what speakers he had. I think they were CS-77A speakers from Pioneer from 74, 75, 76, somewhere in that range. He had a late 70s SX780 receiver, and I was kind of surprised that he didn't have later 70s, let's say HPM 40s or 60s to go along with that receiver. I figured that was a 45 watt per channel receiver, so instead of HPM 60s would have went really well with it. The HPM 100s probably would have been better. The HPM 100 speaker by Pioneer back in the day was actually designed by the same guy who designed the JBL L100. That's significant because the JBL L100 is the one that people still remember to this day a lot, and it's the Maxell ad where the guy's like kicked back in the chair and he catches the drink as it slides off, and you've probably seen that in Family Guy. But the one speaker in front of him, that was a JBL L100, and So people remember that had the foam with the little egg crate type square looking stuff cut into the foam. They still make that speaker, like they make a version of it now. But that guy went to Pioneer and designed what he thought was a better speaker at Pioneer in the HPM 100, and that speaker's only really known to vintage Pioneer audio guys now. So that's kind of interesting. Pioneer SX780, like I talked about, I actually have one right down here. It's on the floor. I need to get it up somewhere. It's a really nice receiver. The 45 watts per channel in the 70s was not 45 watts per channel now. It's got some power. This dude's got some oomph. In my dining room, which I talked about, I had some Klipsch KT 3.2s in there. In my dining room, I think there's a very early video on my channel about this, but I have a Pioneer SX 580 in there. The 780 I think will fit, but the 580 fits really well within the cabinet that I have, and it looks good in there. And so it's a little 580, and then I bought a cheapy cabinet from Amazon that can hold some records. My record player's on top, and then there's a shelf under the record player where my receiver is. It's got some LEDs in there, and it looks cool off of the milled aluminum faceplate on the Pioneer receiver. So I love that little silver face receiver era. My record player in there is a Fluence RT85, and it has an order phone, and it has a 2M blue stylus needle, okay, which is a little diamond tip thing, and it sounds good to me. The Fluence turntables are really basic. It's a manual turntable. It's belt driven, so it's basic, right? But it's got a nice stylus, nice-ish. If you're into audio stuff, it's probably the bare minimum of what you do, but yeah, it sounds good to me. It really does. And then I've actually got another I've actually got another record player right over there that is cheap Audio-Technica, but it's got Bluetooth, which is kind of cool because I can maybe I can like throw it up here on my desk and plug it in and put a record on here and play it in the living room. Or if sometimes it'll reach even out to my den. I've got a lot of audio setups. I love this stuff, guys. You can probably tell because I'm rattling it off. And so out in the den, in the living room, also I have a Pioneer. I have a Sony receiver. So all my newer receivers are Sony, and then my older stuff's Pioneer. So I got the DH190 here. I have the STR AN1000, I think, in my living room. And then in my den, I have the DH590, which the reviews on that aren't that great, but it does its job fine. So I've also got in the living room, back up a sec, so there's the RP440C and the CS63DX speakers, and then I have a 12-inch subwoofer, 400-watt 12-inch subwoofer, nothing crazy in there. It doesn't go super low. I think it plays down to about 20 hertz. It'd be nice if it went down to 15. You really get some extra rumbles there, but that's fine. I'll get a better subwoofer at some point. Out in the den, I have that 590, and then I have two Klipsch RP280 towers, RP280F, yeah. And so it's reference Premiere. It's the better stuff with the better components and stuff. It's still all Chinese stuff, but it's better components at least. And it's not the Heritage line. It sounds good. It really does. And I have the RP 450C center channel, the RP 280F towers, and then these guys will actually be the rear speakers for that setup. They're not out there right now, so right now it's just the center and two towers. But I'll eventually move the subwoofer back out there, and then these will be the rears, and so there'll be a 5.1 setup. It'll sound good. I had another set of these because when Newegg a couple years ago had just this ridiculous deal of getting rid of the last of this generation, and I had two pairs of these, and I should have kept the other pair because I absolutely love how these speakers sound. Listen to them all the time. Like I said, they're hooked to the TV through this, so anytime I'm playing video games, it's through these speakers. It's not through the TV speakers. It's those, and they sound freaking awesome. And that's audio stuff. I've talked for 22 minutes on that. That's wild. I can talk about that stuff forever. Coming back in here, back to this TV. So I said it's a 2009, it's 1080p, but this is the best 1080p TV I've ever seen in my life. The picture quality and the colors are just so good. It really is a good TV. You know, obviously, if you get too much bigger than 46 with a 1080p, you can start to see the distance between the pixels, right? And so that's a little bit of a problem. But yeah, that TV, it just looks good. Like, again, here on this camera, it's too bright, it's blown out. But when I turn around and look at that, yeah, it's like I'm looking through a window outside. It's crazy how clear that TV is for being a, how old is it now? 17-year-old. It's 17. Oh my gosh, a 17-year-old 1080p TV. It's just wild how good it looks. And I'm never disappointed on that TV playing video games or watching anything. It's just always so good. And so that's the audio setups. There are 4. There's one in here, dining room, living room, and then the den. And then I have a little radio out in the garage too, which is honestly the little Sony radio that I got for Christmas when I was like 13 or something. And so it still works fine, and it's still out there. And it's kind of crazy that it still works great, because my dad used the rear speakers on it. I wasn't using it for a long time when I was an older teenager, and my dad used the rear speakers, or used its 2 speakers as rears in his 5.1 at the house. And I'm honestly kind of surprised they held up to what we pushed through them, I guess, because we weren't easy on them. Yeah, no, they're still fine. They still sound fine. It still works. So yeah, I like the audio stuff. I haven't spent much on it in a while. I'm kind of happy with what I got. If all of a sudden I had some more money to play with, and the car stuff's always first. I got 4 Mustangs, right? But if I had a fair amount of extra money to play with, I would probably swap the KG 3.2s in my dining room out for Klipsch Heresies. The speakers in my living room, the Pioneer CS63DX from 1974, they're gorgeous. I would keep those and find a spot for them. However, I would probably swap those out for, I'd probably buy some new Klipsch Fortes in there. And then in my den, I like the setup that's in the den, the towers and everything, because those RP280F towers, as opposed to the generation after that, and off the top of my head, I'm not going to remember what those were called, but the RP280Fs, they do really well with music and movies, and then the generation after that, they were voiced more for movies, and they don't do as well with music. And I've listened to some of them, and this is stuff that I've heard other people say in reviews, and I've listened to both of them as well, and I agree. The RP280S that I have, the older 3 generations old now, so 2 new generations in front of it, I think they're just a really good blend of being capable in movies and in music, and so I'm gonna keep them. I like them. Even if I had millions of dollars, I'm keeping those speakers. Honestly, I'm probably gonna keep them all. Just radios in every room. I love it. I just like listening to music. Anyway, so let's talk a little bit of car stuff. I've been talking, at this point in this recording, a lot will get cut out, but I've been talking for 26 minutes. I like this stuff, though. It's exciting. Anyway, I posted, and I'll show you guys the pictures, but I posted something that said, I'm still waiting for some stuff to get here, but this is kind of, I've got my suspension laid out, and I'll show it here, of the parts that I've got so far next to the Blue Bullet, and it looks cool. I can't wait for the video where I actually put it all in and have the full thumbnail of all the parts that are going in the car. Ooh, a really cool thumbnail, if I have the room for it, would be, I don't know if I have the room to do it, though. It would be really cool if I had the car sitting there on jack stands with all the suspension out of it, and then right beside the car have all the suspension laid out that I took out of it, the rear end, all the front suspension, all the everything that I took out of it, and it would have the bolt-in subframe connectors out and everything, and then beside that have all the new parts that are going in. And that'd be a cool picture for a thumbnail. And then I just could move that stuff out of the middle outside and then have the room to work on the car. I don't know, we'll see. I might do something like that. Part of me is wanting to do that. Part of me, though, is wanting to go ahead and get the subframe connectors in, because they need to be welded in, and I want to. So when you do coilovers on these cars, you're obviously putting weight on the front strut towers and the rear shock towers, and they were never really designed for that. And these cars are kind of flexible, so I know that doing that will flex the car in a little bit, not a ton, but it'll flex the car in ways it wasn't really designed to handle. And so what I really want to put the subframe connectors on and get them welded in place while the car's still on its stock suspension and the weight of the car sitting where it's supposed to sit. And so I'll get the car up on jack stands. Obviously the wheels will be off, but I have it sitting on its, jack stands under the rear end and the jack stands under the A-arms. So it's sitting on its springs how it's supposed to be and weighted how it's supposed to be. And, and then we'll weld the subframe connectors in like that. And then when I do the control arms, or the lower control arms and the coilovers in the front and the coilovers in the back with the IRS, when it puts weight up into kind of the shock towers at that point, the car should be more stable and sturdy. And I'm looking at other stuff too. I'm not as worried about the front, but maybe I should be, because I know that Maximum Motorsports used to recommend a strut tower brace when you do front coilovers, and they don't anymore recommend that, but they also don't make one anymore. And so I'm like, well, if they made one, would they recommend it? Would I be able to get the sales guy to admit to that? I don't know. Steeda still makes one, so maybe I'll get the Steeda one. The rear is more of a concern to me because the front is made to handle some stress, because the strut sticks up there and it's the upper connection of the suspension. There's the lower control arm, the spindle, and the strut. It's a McPherson strut setup. And so that strut does handle a lot. The weight of the car is not on the strut, it's on the spring and the spring pocket in the frame, but that strut still does handle a lot of force. So I'm not as concerned about the front, but the rear coilover going up into that rear shock mount, I know that's not designed for that. And I've seen a couple pictures of of some cars with the rear inner shock towers like busted away from the car, the welds broke. It's kind of like, okay, but I know those were race cars. I know those weren't street cars. I know those were like all-out race cars with ultra grippy tires putting all kinds of force through the chassis. And so, yeah, I'm not as worried about that, but I still want something. Okay, here's the thing. I know the rear shocks point up and the forces go up. I fully understand that. And I understand that a strut tower or a shock tower brace on the rear is a sideways thing. It keeps them from flexing in towards each other and not up. I fully understand that. But I still want it back there because I still want one back there. That might not be the way to go. Maybe it would be, a good idea to go ahead and like cut back the seam sealer and weld up all the seams around the rear shock towers. And I know that there's the one, Kenny Brown makes it, I guess. Kenny Brown was out of business for a while. I guess they're back. I don't know. Anyway, but they make one that ties into the floor. And so like, okay, cool. It tied into the floor. So now if it's trying to push up here, it's pulling against a triangle down to the floor. I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense. That's kind of cool. I can see how that would be beneficial, but it's the floor. It's like sheet metal. It is not doing anything. And so then I'm like, okay, well, I get it. Like if you went ahead and where it ties into the floor, if you got under the car and let's say welded in a plate under there, plate, and then went through that and bolted through that plate, then you're holding against something. So I don't know. I mean, there's the other thing you could do too, of like a 4-point cage and then run some bars off of the 4-point down to the shock towers as well. That would help. Or maybe come across down to the shock towers. But then I'm like, hold up, wait a minute. This thing's a street car. I don't know if I want to go throwing a cage in it. I have a feeling if I get a welder to do these subframe connectors, I have a feeling I might end up taking things too far. But it's that whole thing of like, well, I mean, I'm not doing anything else today. I can get back there and sturdy some stuff up a bit. So I don't know. I don't know how far I'm going to take it. The subframe connectors are going to be great. And then I probably will look at a strut tire brace. But I don't want to spend the money on a new one. And I do want a Maximum Motorsports one. I kind of like all the same company stuff. And And so maybe, it's what, MMTSB-5 or STB-5 or something like that, the part number. They don't make it anymore, but every now and then I've got it saved in a Google Sheets thing, and so every now and then I just copy that part number and throw it in eBay, and then also do a search for strut tower brace and just see if I can find a random one. I might actually reach out to one of the place I bought the IRS from. I'm going blank on their name right now. I'm going to look that up. Bear with me. MPS Auto Salvage. Yeah, they actually have a Steeda shock tower brace for the rear. It might have even came off the same car that my Cobra IRS came out of. Anyway, yeah, MPS Auto Salvage. They have treated me very well and hooked me up on stuff, and I like working with them. They seem like good people. As far as no, I mean, I'm sure someone's had dealt with them and had the worst experience ever, but I have been very happy. Okay, anyway, back to this Facebook post thing I made, talking about what I'm gonna do to the car and the wheel rates of these springs. I'm getting 275 pound rear, 500 pound front, 20% stiffer than the Cobra R, 50% stiffer than the 03 Cobra, and 90% stiffer than the 01 Cobra for comparison's sake. And then, talking about I might go to a square setup in the future, 18 by 9.5, so 285, 35, 18s, all that stuff. And then, of course, I said, hey, it's a little cheesy, corny, whatever, but if you want to check out the build and follow what I'm doing, or just kind of what I'm up to with my cars, because one picture shows, and I'll post it here too, but it shows the other Mustangs outside. I put the cheap old cars and corners on YouTube. Just come check us out. Just see how things are. See what's happening. And I got some comments, and I'll tell you a few of the comments. I found them interesting. One of them's like, I just did that on my Mach 1 minus the IRS. Super eager for the weather to finally turn so I can get out and drive it. And he said, I kept second guessing myself on the 275 pound springs. I'm wondering if I should have gone with 300. And if you remember my older videos, I was wondering the same thing. Should I go 300, 325, 350 in the front? I don't know. And then there's a guy that said, in his opinion, 275 is too soft. Okay. And let's chase that rabbit a little bit, right? So I messaged that guy back and I said, too soft from a feel standpoint or an actual body roll standpoint? And I said the wheel rate of a 275 is 234. And so that is, I talked about this in a different video, but where the spring sits and the actual spring rate at the wheel it's the motion ratio they have to figure out and then figure out the wheel rate. And so it's 234 roughly on a 275 pound coilover in the front. I said, an H&R Race spring is 213, and the H&R Super Race is 263. Now, 275 is 234. So all that to say is the 275 coilover is between an H&R Race and Super Race. Okay. So I have H&R SS right now with a wheel rate of 190, and definitely one that's stiffer from a body roll perspective. I know that taking the friction off the ball joint will make it feel like a GT spring, though, when it comes to quick bumps. I said I've never gone down this route. I'm kind of going off math and what other people say at this point, so I don't know in my hands, and I'm trying to mimic what I was doing back there. Anyway, so I was just like, I'm interested in stuff here, and I was looking at that guy's profile because you can snoop around on the Facebooks, and he was doing autocross and stuff, so I'm assuming he wants something maybe a little stiffer than that. I don't know for sure. And so his reply to that, because I said, hey, is it from like an actual body roll standpoint or just feels too soft? Because there's that thing where you want your car to feel sporty and firm, right? And I know that when you do the coilovers in the front of these Mustangs, you take a lot of friction out of the ball joint, and it just rides a lot better and smoother, and the suspension can move easier. Because it's the friction off the ball joint and the two bushings for the lower control arm in the front. So when you remove all that friction, everything just moves easier, okay? Now, does that mean you end up with more body roll? Maybe, I don't know. But his response is, is it the feel or the actual body roll? He said both, in my opinion. He said, this is my personal opinion, but he thinks Maximum Motorsports underspring stuff, so they suggest too soft. And I've seen that in a bunch of other things, and I don't think Maximum Motorsports suggests spring rates that are too soft. I think there's a lot of different ways to explain what you want out of your car, and in that, let's say two people want the exact same thing, but they explain it two different ways, or two people can explain something the exact same way but want two different things. Does that make sense? So I'm assuming from a business standpoint of trying to recommend things to people, you would probably end up leaning towards the better ride quality, unless someone tells you, I want all out race, I don't care about ride quality. Then you'd end up with some pretty stiff springs. Anyway, he said, 4-valve cars are super front heavy, which, yeah, I agree. And I got the 2-valve car. And that's, again, back to the other video I made a long time ago about would you pick like the Bullet versus the Mach 1. And I was like, I kind of picked the Bullet because it doesn't feel as nose heavy and doesn't lean as much. And the Bullet has a lower center of gravity. So for me in the corners, a Bullet feels better to drive. And so, yeah, I agree with that. And I've got 2 valves, so I'm not as worried about that spring rate needing to be heavier to control the higher center of gravity of a 4-valve. He said, but obviously you get much past 300 and you're getting too heavy for the regular Bilstein shocks. Yes. So the Bilstein shocks, which I'm going with for my setup, you can go up to 325 in the front, and that's about what they're valved to handle. And then in the rear you can go to, I think, 525, maybe 550, but I think 525. I've even seen some stuff recently that says 500. Whatever. So I'm basically running not quite as remember I'm running 275 front, 500 pound rear, and so I'm running not quite as stiff as I can go in the front. I could go up to a 325, but in the rear I'm almost at as much as I can run. Okay, well, I could just increase the front and have less body roll, right? I could go up to 325, but then I'm impacting that front rear spring balance, which I'm interested in keeping, because if you look at, I've had the charts and I don't have them pulled them up right now, but if you look at the wheel rates of a Cobra, the Cobras have softer wheel rate in the front, or a lesser wheel rate in the front than the rear by 6 to 10%, right? I think the 0304 Cobra is actually closer to 12%, and the 01 Cobra and 00 Cobra are 6, 7, 8%, somewhere in there. That is percent softer wheel rate in the front than the rear. So my setup that I was recommending was like 7% softer in the front than the rear, and so it's right in line with those cars. And I'm like, okay, that's probably where I want to be. That's probably good. And if I go to a stiffer front rate, yeah, it's going to reduce my body roll in the front, but it's also going to throw off the front rear balance that is going to be there. And I'm running staggered wheels and tires, and so staggered wheels and tires are going to be having more they're going to be more prone to understeer at the limit. And if I go to a stiffer front spring and throw off this balance, then the car's going to be even more prone to understeer at the limit. And that's technically a good thing for a street driven car. You want to understeer before you oversteer, but I'm a decent-ish driver. I can drive okay. I can catch a slide, because I grew up racing four-wheelers and all kinds of stuff. Racing, not really, but I sliding four-wheelers around and all kinds of stuff, and I've slid quite a few cars around. Had a 77 Trans Am, and it would go sideways about whenever you wanted it to. So I've done a fair amount of this stuff, and I can catch a little slide pretty quickly. That's not an issue. So I do want that balance to be there, that the rear end will come around first, and it's probably still not going to with my staggered setup. Whatever. Anyway, and he put a picture up, and I'm not going to show his picture, it's not mine, whatever, but he said, a V6 he had with 275 fronts, and it had a bunch of body roll, and he showed the picture. He's like, look at all this body roll. But then I'm looking at the picture, and it looks like a Cobra, but obviously you can put different body parts on the stuff, but I see a fat intercooler in the bumper, and so I'm doubting that's a V6. That's probably a 4-valve car. But I told him, it's like, hey, if it ends up too soft, that would suck, but I'll just move the front coilovers to a different car and get something different if I have to. And then a couple other people are replying here. One guy said, the one that did his stuff to the Mach 1, I replied to him and I sent him a version of my chart that's viewer only, so he can kind of look in there and see some of the different spring rates and wheel rates and stuff and have an idea of things. And then I had one comment that said, nice, but honestly I'm not a fan of the IRS. The car feels like it has so much more body roll, and the wheel hob was horrible. And then he said some Maximum Motorsports lower control arms and the stiff springs really tightened up the car. My assumption there is he didn't have that guy didn't do any of the bushings. He probably just put it in with all the soft, very soft rubber bushings. Now maybe he did and stuff, but I'm not concerned about wheel hop. I'm really not. I don't launch the car. I've got 265 horsepower. Most of the bushings are already done in the rear end. I don't know, I'm not concerned about that. And then another guy, he said, had a GT with an IRS. I really regret selling it. The extra weight out back and the lighter 2-valve was a very fun car to drive. That's what I'm hoping is going to happen. That's what I actually think is going to happen. So the IRS is like 80-90 pounds heavier than a solid axle. But it has less unsprung weight than a solid axle. Most of it is... Or is it less sprung weight? And I don't remember. I think it's less unsprung weight. Yeah, it would have to be less unsprung weight because the axle is not below the springs. A lot of it is weight of the car. But so here's my thing on that. So it's a 2-valve, and it is iron block, right? But it's a low front center of gravity because all the weight in the engine's down low and then 2-valve heads. And it is lighter than a 4-valve car. And... it's definitely lighter than a 4-valve car with a supercharger. And I'm adding 80-90 pounds to the rear of the car, which, yeah, I'm making the car heavier. I get that, okay? But if I take a car with a front weight bias and I add weight to the rear, even if the car's heavier, hey, all of a sudden my weight distribution, my weight bias is closer to 50-50. It's not going to be anywhere close to 50-50, but closer. And then, I'm doing the subframe connectors. It has subframe connectors, being a bullet. And they're bolt-on ones. These ones I'm going to put in are thicker and longer, and so they will be heavier, but that's going to be weight down low, so that's not a horrible thing. It's all really down low in the car, about as low as you can get. But it's not like I'm adding the weight of the subframe connectors. I'm adding the weight of the subframe connectors minus the weight of the subframe connectors that are already on it. So it might be 7 pounds. I'm adding 6-7 pounds of weight. That's not a big deal down low. I could lose that in a week or so if I really tried. And then in the front, I'm going to take out the factory control arms and put in the Maximum Motorsports control arms. They're the non-offset. I got the normal because if I do the BBK, oh my gosh, what am I thinking? If I do the Maximum Motorsports K member. That's why I said BBK. I'm thinking Ks. Anyway, if I do their K member in the future, their K member moves the wheels 3/4 of an inch forward. I didn't want to get the offset control arms, and then my wheels would be another 3/4 of an inch for 1.5 inches forward total. That's not going to work for me and street stuff, and I don't want to trim the bumper, and I don't want to hit my fender liners and all that. No, thank you. I understand that I'm giving up some overall cornering experience and feel. Turn in would be really good with a lot more caster, but oh well, I don't want to do that. So when I do get the K member, the wheels will be 3/4 of an inch forward of where they are now. That's fine, and the K member and the control arms, and then the K member, control arms, and coilovers in the front removes, they say, about 40 pounds from the front of the car. Okay, so I take 40 pounds off the front. Add 6 or 7 pounds to the lower middle, add 80 pounds to the rear. Yeah, the car is heavier, but it's not going to be that much heavier in the long run when it's all done, right? It's really not going to be that much heavier, and the weight distribution of the car is going to be more towards the rear than it is now. So these are good things. These are fine things. I would like the car to eventually be lighter than it came in factory form. And so I'm keeping track of everything that I'm doing to the car. And eventually I do want to run like a lightweight battery and do some other things in the front to get some weight out of the front. So, well, I got it back over here behind me. I'm not going to pick it up right now. But actually, I think I will. It's huge. So I've got this, this Chrome crash bumper here. Let's see if we can get to change color. It's doing the green thing. There's some purple in it. Yeah, there's some purple. And there's some blue and green. This thing's kind of heavy. 20 pounds, 25 pounds or something. I don't know. But it's kind of heavy. But I could take I could take a hole saw, a small one, and just or just like little hole, little hole, little hole, little hole, little hole, little hole, and on the top and bottom. And yeah, sure, that's going to and like, yeah, that's going to take away some crash protection in the front. I drive the car when there's not many people out, and let's say I removed 4 or 5 pounds from this thing. That would help, because that's right up there on the very far end of the nose. Because if you're removing weight from a car, if you want to get weight off the front, the further forward you go, the more impact it has. Just how levers work, right? So if I remove 5 pounds at the very nose of the car, it's going to be like removing, I don't know exactly, not just giving an example, but it'd be like removing 10 pounds from the center of the engine bay. But if then I'm thinking like, well, if I do the strut tower brace in the front, that's some added weight in the front. So I'm going to have to figure this out. Eventually, this is way on down the road, I would like to run an aluminum block in that car. Ultimately, I would like to run an LS in it. I know there's going to be people like, oh, no, don't do that, whatever. I'm not a brand loyal guy. The LS is a good motor. It's small. It's compact overall. It doesn't have all the chains and the overhead cam stuff, so the cam's in the center of the block, and it's a lower engine, and it's lightweight and stuff. But then part of me's going, instead of doing that, just buy a Corvette. Just buy a C5, like a base coupe. $15,000 or something, you have a nice car. So that'll probably be a thing eventually, because that'd be that's a lot of car for not much money. Anywho, I don't know. I don't want to edit this. It's gonna take so long to edit this and go through and find the few mistakes I made, because I've talked a lot. Oh my gosh, talked for about an hour. I didn't really have anything to make a video about. See, here's the thing, guys. Today's Tuesday. This video is going to come out Wednesday. I've got some backup videos I can put out, but they're quite old now, because I got ahead and made some extras just in case something came up or whatever. So I've got backup videos that are already on YouTube, and I could just post them, but it's not what's going on right now. It's some just random stuff. Honestly, I don't even remember what they're about, but I've got them. But I might need to make some newer backup videos, just in case, because I have a video every Wednesday and every Saturday. For a while there, I was doing Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. But that was a lot of work. I was working 50, 60 hours a week to put out 3 videos like that. Yeah, that was a lot more work than I thought, which is fine. I like working. But yeah, so right now it's every Wednesday. I try to have it at 11 a.m. Central Time on Wednesday, and then I have one out at around 7:30 to 8 a.m. Central Time every Saturday. So they're not getting as many views as I would hope. You guys gotta watch. No one's gonna see this. Like, this video's gonna get 20 views, and one person might make it to this part. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. Like and subscribe if you did. Subscribe anyway, but like it if you liked it. Check out the merch store. The link's in bio in the video description. Still got the same shirts. I haven't had many sales. I've had some sales, not just a few, but maybe I need to take some of these designs down and put some other designs up. I've got designs waiting. I'm just hoping to get some more sales on these and get some stuff rolling and put out some new designs. And I don't know. We'll see. I'm trying to figure it all out. But yeah, if you want to support the channel, buy a shirt. They're fun. My wife and I make them, and they're pretty cool. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. I'll see you in the next one.